Gerie DiPiano, and you are in the Love Mia Vita podcast. And perhaps you're even seeing some of this on YouTube. Today, my guest is Carole Montgomery, who is a well renowned comedian. Has been doing this for many, many years. You may have seen her on TV, you may have seen her on in Las Vegas or at some other venue. Her career spans over 20 years, and she has made us laugh and pee our pants. Even those of us that have never experienced urinary incontinence have peed our pants because she is the funny woman. But Carole, I would love for you to share more about your background because it is so impressive, and you are definitely delivering a difference. You're making us all laugh, and after all, laughter is the best medicine, and this is what we're all about. We want to make women feel good.
Yes.
How did you get started in comedy?
Well, so my father is a big part of this. My father was a very larger than life human being, and I worshiped the ground he walked on, and he was very funny, and he turned me on to comedy. Women of a certain age who are listening to this probably, especially on the East Coast, every Sunday morning on Channel 5 in New York City, there would be of course, the Bowery Boys and Abbott and Costello and I Love Lucy. And it was always on in my house. So I was around comedy my whole life. And like I said, my father turned me on to the Marx Brothers. The Marx Brothers are like my idols, and and he wanted to be a comedian. I really do think he did want to be a comedian, but he went into the military, came home from the military. He was injured. He got married to my mom, and he decided to become a teacher because that's what men did back then. They're like, oh, nope, I got to do what's right for my family. And that's what he did. But what happened was he was a teacher. And then in the summertime, he would take this, the teachers were off. So he would be a bartender in the Catskill Mountains. So as a little girl, I'd be sitting on the stool while my father was setting up the bar, like in the afternoon. And in would walk, Toady Fields or Jackie Mason or Jack Roy, who ends up becoming Rodney Dangerfield. And they were doing their mic check. And years later, I said to my father, all this like worry about me becoming a comic, it's your fault. It's your fault. I mean, you had me hanging out with comedians when I was a little girl. So I've been around nightclubs my whole life. And what's interesting about this is that, fast forward to my son, who's 31 now, I brought him to I traveled with him from 6 months until he was 2.5 years old. And what does he do? He works in rock venues. He's a vampire, just like his mother. I mean, it's so funny. My son doesn't go to sleep before 4. Like if I say to my son, hey, let's have breakfast. And I'm thinking maybe 10. He's like, how about 2? I'm like, no, that's lunch.
Yeah. Well, it makes sense, right? And so that you've been around this, you've been exposed to this your entire life. What a great background.
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting. And then because I was, we were up there all summer, and so they would always have talent shows for the kids of the workers. So I did every year. I did a talent show. I mean, like it obviously was destiny. This was my life purpose, was to be a comedian. So that's how it started. And I was actually working in summer stock. I was doing tech work. I was like building sets and doing lights and everything. And after the shows, all the techies would sit around, have drinks and talk. And everyone said to me, you should be a comedian. Now you have to understand, this was in 1979. So the comedians we know now, like everyone knows what a comedian is now. But back then I was like, what are you talking about? Like, what's a comedian? Like I knew what a comedian was, but like the only person I know that did any kind of comedy every night was Johnny Carson. I said, is that what you mean? And they're like, yeah. So we one of my friends and I wrote some jokes for me, and then we had a Christmas in August party, and I got up and I did some jokes. I don't remember what I did because I was probably so drunk, because I was like 20, 21 actually. And that started me. That really, that's what I decided. And it's weird. It, you know, it's been I've had a very good career, but when I think about what it was like when I was young and the passion that I had, I mean, I was so focused on becoming a comedian that nothing was going to stand in my way, and it's interesting when I talk about it now, because I'm like, if you would have told me that 40 years later I would finally be that, like I would hit with the Showtime specials and stuff. 40 years later, I'd have been like, really? I could have been in jail and killed somebody and been out twice.
And you heard it. She has a Showtime special. You heard it. You can see Carole Montgomery pretty much anywhere you want to find comedy. And when I Googled Carole Montgomery to learn more about her, boy, did I find quite a number of entries. And, interestingly enough, when we discussed having you on our podcast, I thought, wow, what an incredible find, because Carole does support women of a certain age. And that certain age, really, it starts at 40, when
Yes.
women think life is over. And by the way, my friends, life just begins. And
Oh,
I know that sounds like it's a cliche, but we are having fun.
oh yeah.
We hit a certain age. And Carol's going to answer a few questions on this podcast for us, because there are so many secret searches going on out there, and that's really what we're going to discuss today with Carole. It's really, what are women searching for? What's of interest to them, and how do we address this, and how do we address it with humor, more importantly? So I actually pulled up an article that I found. I want to give credit to the writer at AARP, who actually put this kind of article together. It's Mara Reinstein, and she did an article on something called The Girlfriend from AARP. And I thought it was quite interesting because she found 40 things that women over 40 have been secretly querying on Google. And I thought that was fascinating. By the way, I'm probably one of those women who Googled some of these things. So we're gonna go down my list of about 17 items, and love to get Carole's input on this.
Can I just interrupt you for one moment? Just very quickly about what you said about 40, it's just beginning. And it really isn't a cliche, because it really is. It's true, because I hit my stride. I created Funny Women of a Certain Age when I was 59. I mean, so it's only been 4 years since the specials have aired. So for women who are listening, yes, it sounds like, oh yeah, your life just begins, but it really does. I mean, because what happens once you hit 40 is, most of the time you've had the children and they're growing up, or they're grown up. And especially when you get into your 50s and 60s, they're grown up, unless there's a mistake and you still have a toddler, which I'm sorry, because that would be a pain in the butt. But the freedom that happens when you get older, I wish for every young woman, because young women are so wrapped up in, like you're saying, these secret searches that women do. They're so wrapped up in, what should I do now? What does Cosmo say I should do now? Do you know what I mean? And like, when you get to our age, you're like, I don't care. I like pizza too much.
It's interesting that you say that, because I always reflect back on my own history, when I started the first Femme Pharma. And I was just a child coming out of Big Pharma, out of the multinational companies. And I was such an eager young woman, always wanting to get the straight A's, always wanting to be that perfect woman. And when I left the security of these multinational big pharma companies, I thought, I must be out of my mind. I said, no, I'm finally free.
Right.
I'm finally free to do exactly what I've always wanted to do.
Yep.
And, it was a checkbook and a credit card. And people thought I was manic when I did it. No,
Mhm.
I was finally free. And by the way, I had a young child at the time. I had a 1-year-old.
Yeah.
So there were a lot of firsts going on there. And I've never regretted one day
Mhm.
because here I am
Right.
sitting with you and we're having this conversation and sharing, hopefully, some good humor, some good fun about what it means to be over 40 and how do we address some of these questions. So,
Yeah. Let's hear the questions.
so here we go. This woman asks the question, how do I stop my husband snoring without waking him up?
Put a pillow over his head, just right over his face. It's fine. He'll stop snoring. He may stop breathing, but the snoring will stop.
There is that trick works really well. I've actually tried it, and if anybody's actually listening to this, my other trick is I kick my husband,
Oh,
and
yeah.
and that shakes him up a little bit. But I like the pillow better. It's much gentler. And I did do some CPR training. So many years ago, I actually worked in an emergency room in a trauma unit in a hospital. And yeah, I'm still certified to do CPR, and
Wow.
I don't have a defibrillator at home though, so we might have to go easy on the pillow, Carol. I think I'll go.
Well, I think you could probably make your own defibrillator if you have a couple of curling irons.
Ooh, yeah, yeah, yeah. I could try that. Yeah, he'd probably jump.
He'll definitely jump.
He'd probably jump. Okay, and that and there we go. And what about my husband and Viagra?
Okay, I'll tell you a great. Oh, this really happened. So my father, when he was still alive, he was 87, and he really did this. We were on the phone, and I said to him, we were just talking about my son, and he told me that he tried Viagra. He took my 87-year-old father. So of course, being a comedian, I said, Dad, what's it like? And this is his honest reaction. He said it was like putting up a brand new flagpole in front of a condemned building. And that's all I have to say about Viagra. It's like, he was in a home for a couple of years, and they would get their medicines, and then the old men would line up for their Viagra, and then they're walking around the homes with erections, and there's nobody. I mean, like, why would you do that? Why would you give a man if he can't even do anything with it? So yeah, I'm not a big fan.
The so to this woman, yeah, how about my husband and Viagra? Depending upon what's going, if you're an age appropriate woman, you probably don't want him using that product or any ED drug. And I don't mean to indict, we don't want to use product names, but you don't want to use an ED drug, because let's face it, if you're a woman of a certain age, it probably isn't going to feel good if he's got an erection. He's chasing you around the house and he wants to do it 24/7. You might want to consider the pillow.
Yeah, exactly.
You want to consider the pillow, or you may want to vacate the premises. The So right along with that is the odds of getting pregnant at age 45.
Wow. Well, wow. I'm sure I went into menopause early. I went into menopause at 50, I think. So I would have been shocked that, I mean, I could have probably still gotten pregnant at 45, but at that point the eggs were probably powdered eggs. So really, what kind of baby would have came out of that?
So the odds of getting pregnant at age 45, I think this is where, we definitely want to have a pregnancy test. And if you and your husband or partner are still having sex, you may want to, especially if he's using Viagra, you may want to consider the condom. Once you rule out pregnancy, You may want to consider the condom because you could still get pregnant.
Yeah, yeah. I can't even fathom getting pregnant at that age. I mean, I was 32, so I was technically old for my generation, but I can't even, yeah, I just remember like a couple of days after my son was born, I was sitting in the living room in my rocking chair at like 3 o'clock in the morning. I was breastfeeding and I was just like, I was so tired. I was so tired. I'm still tired. Yeah, that's the other thing, by the way, people who are listening, if there are any young women listening, this whole thing about like when the child grows up and you'll get a good night's sleep. I still haven't had a good night's sleep. I still can't. My son is a grown man. This is my hack for over. If you're an over worrier like I am, so my son is on social media, and he's on Instagram mostly. So the only way I get to go to sleep at night sometimes when I start to go into that, when I start to spin into that worry ward, is I look on the messenger and I look up his thing, and if his green light is on, I can go to sleep because that means he's there. You know what I mean?
Yes.
People think I'm crazy, but yeah, you never go back to sleep.
No, you never do.
You have children, right? Yes.
Yes, and
Yes.
I ditto. So when my adult daughter calls me at 11 o'clock at night and we have a chat, I'm like, okay, so what's up for the rest of the night? And she won't tell me, and there you go. And then I'm wide awake for the rest of the night, and I'm the worrier.
Right.
And then I speak to her at 7:30 in the morning. She's, Ma, why are you calling? I'm just checking in.
Just checking in.
Just checking in. Wanted to hear your lovely voice.
My son, when he leaves, because yeah, I live in Manhattan, he lives in Brooklyn, and he's only 20, 30 minutes from where I live and everything. But what I used to say to him when he was younger, when he first moved out, I said, well, make sure you send me a picture of my grandcat, because I have a grandcat.
Oh, me too.
Oh, okay. But he knows that's code for, well, if he's sending me a picture of the cat, he must be home. So
Right.
now he doesn't even wait for me to say it anymore. Like he opens the door and the cat's there and he takes the picture, hasn't even taken his coat off, and he's like sending me the picture. I'm like, thanks, honey.
Yes, we have the same thing. Yes, ladies, even if you have children that are younger, understand this. They are yours for life. And thank goodness that they are yours for life. You never stop worrying.
Nope.
Never stop
Never
worrying.
stop worrying.
The on the subject of 4 cups of coffee and health risks. So this is for those of us that lie awake waiting for checking for the green light on Instagram or the phone call at 7 o'clock or 7:30 in the morning, right? 4 cups of coffee and health risks.
Yes, there are many health risks to drinking 4 cups of coffee. I can't drink. If I have 1 cup of coffee in the morning, and if I have another cup of coffee, that's one of the reasons I'm up worrying about my son, because I'm awake. And you know what happens when you wake up in the middle of the night? No good thing. Nothing ever comes from waking up in the middle of the night and then staying awake, because your mind just goes into places it shouldn't go into. Do you know what I mean? So if I even smell a second cup of coffee, I'm awake. So it's not good for you.
No, it's, I will say this, that nothing good does happen after, you've had that 4th cup of coffee. So most of the time, if I've had even 2 cups of coffee and I walk into my office, I'm bouncing off the walls. They all know. They can tell by listening to my voice.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And it depends on, where you are, right? So if you have to be around other people and you're caffeine sensitive, it may be an ugly look. We have some questions that are really more targeted to issues that women are facing with respect to some of the symptoms that are associated with menopause. One here is, this goes back to this whole erectile dysfunction drug question,
Right.
and etc. And it's the quickest way to improve your sex life. Actually, multiple. So it's quickest ways. This is the search. Again, remember, ladies, that
Right.
you're listening to this. This is, these are the questions that women type into Google.
The quickest way to improve your sex life? see if Hugh Jackman you can hire him. That would be the way I would probably. And if he's not available, I don't know who the other hot person is, but he's my favorite right now. You know, I think, you know, it's interesting because when you get older, I think women we do so much. And I used to do it a bit like this. It's like, you know, the difference between men and women is that women need more to get in the mood. We need romance, you know, maybe some wine, some roses, a gold Amex card, you know, stuff like that. Men have a penis, and when a penis gets hard, it signals to the brain, must have sex now, must have sex now. So and then you get older and there's more stuff in your head. And I mean, I don't know, go away somewhere where no one's around and you can lock the door so no one can hear you. I mean, I live with my mother-in-law you know, so please, you know, you talk about no boundaries. She knocks as she's opening the door.
She still thinks you're 15 and 16.
Right.
So she's, you know, she doesn't care. She's going to check up on you to make sure you're doing it the right way.
Right. Exactly.
You're not doing it at all. She doesn't want you to do it at all.
Right.
She's a little boy.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So, you know, we sometimes recommend the DIY, do it yourself method.
Right.
Quickest way to improve your sex life. You know what you like.
You don't have to talk to your hand.
That's right. If it isn't working, or if you're, you know, or maybe you can't find anybody that's worthy of you.
Right. But yeah, DIY is in a pinch. Go for it.
DIY, as we always say at Femme Pharma, God gave you a clitoris for a reason.
And men can't find it. So
correct. They don't know where to find it. That is absolutely the case.
Or they think when they find it that they should press on it like it's a stick shift.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yep. Absolutely. That's speaking from personal experience, by the way. So this is an interesting one. So again, we hear another question around a menopause symptom, which is help for hot flashes. And you know, again, we're chuckling about these things. Anybody who's in menopause probably had a hot flash from time to time. You know, I believe it's 1 out of 8 women who will experience these hot flashes. You know, and they can be pretty awful, particularly if you have hot flashes at night, because they keep you up at night.
Oh yeah.
Throwing the covers off. Maybe you have a fan on. Maybe like me, you turn the temperature down to 65. You know, so it can be a problem. What are your thoughts on that?
Move to Alaska. No, when I was going through menopause and I was going over, I used to do I used to go overseas for the troops a lot. So, and one of the bases we go to was Alaska before we would go to like Guam and Diego Garcia and Singapore and everything. And I was there one time and I was literally I was just starting menopause and it was below 0. And I walked out in a t-shirt. And my friends were like, "Are you crazy?" I'm like, I could have just dived into a snowbank and I would have been happy. I still get hot flashes. I'm going to be 65. I still get them. You know, and sometimes I don't get them for a while. And then all of a sudden I'm like, seriously, you know, and I live in New York. So do you live in New York, Jared?
Just outside of Philadelphia.
Okay, but you'll understand then New York City, you know, city apartments. So we live in an old building. So when the heat is on, it's like so when the heat is on, I have to open up the windows because it's an old building and you don't know how to turn. And then I have to close the window because then it gets too cold and I open the window. I said, "Oh my God, my apartment is going through menopause."
Yes.
It's, you know, and it's just, sometimes it's so hot and it's not me, and that will trigger another flash. So I seriously move to Alaska, or if you can't do that, get a nice tub of ice and jump in it, or do a cold shower. Seriously, like you always hear about it calming men down. Well, it could calm us down too, in all seriousness.
Whatever you do, don't start ripping your clothes off, because if your husband's then using an ED drug and you're ripping your clothes off, he may think you're and if he's snoring and you happen to jar him awake, he's going to be chasing you around the house. You're going to have something else to worry about,
Exactly.
Please don't, whatever you do, try not to rip your clothes off, or if you do, make sure you do it without your partner seeing you, because that's that's going to keep you up for most of the night. Yeah, and how do you know if you're in menopause? That's an interesting question. How do you know if you're in menopause?
Well, that's a fascinating question. So when I started, okay, so I must have been going into perimenopause because I was still living in Vegas, and I was spotting a lot, right? So I go to my doctor, of course, a male doctor, and I said to him, I'm spotting between periods, and my this is the actor, he really said this to me, goes, well, Carole, your body's like an old car and you're leaking oil.
Weird.
Yes.
Weird.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, if you're getting, first of all, if you're getting hot flashes, the fogginess, the spotting, the wanting to put a pillow over your husband's head, you're probably in menopause. It's probably not a bad marriage. It's probably just menopause.
Well, it's funny that you say that. My when I when I was much younger, and I was visiting my mom, I ended up going into a rage, and my mom, who never really shared anything about menopause, took that to mean that I was having mood swings, and she said, you know what? She said, you're in a rage. That's a sign. That is a sign of menopause. I came to find out many years later that she was right.
Right.
That, sometimes we do rage. And you're right. Hide the pillows. Make sure that there are no sharp objects around, right? Because there are times when you will feel that way. We know the technical definition of menopause, and when you're in full menopause, you haven't had a period for 12 months.
Right.
But there are a lot of other things that go on. Yes, the hot flashes. Some women never have a hot flash. But if you do, in Carole's, recommendation, she's going to move to Alaska. She didn't do that, so she got the tub. She filled it full of ice. She opened.
For the women who have never had hot flashes, I hate you. I mean, I'm so jealous. I really am. I mean, because I think the hardest thing for me is the flashes, because it comes out of nowhere, and it just is just. Men they're dumbfounded. They cannot understand why it's an issue, but it's so like all encompassing. And then it goes away. Like it's literally, you can feel it coming on, and then it subsides, and then you're fine again. But yeah.
Yes, and the funny thing about hot flashes is that when you're having a hot flash, if you may also have rosacea like I do, and then it's the face gets flushed, it looks like you're burning up, and somebody says, why are you wearing excessive makeup? So then my daughter asked me the question, Mom, why are you wearing excessive makeup? And then she notices that my face gets bright red, and then I have perspiration on my upper lip.
Right.
I take this scarf, this is the scarf that hides the wrinkled neck. So I take my scarf off because it's now saturated with perspiration.
Right. Yep.
It can really get ugly there.
Yeah.
It can really get ugly. I know what you mean.
Yeah.
I really am so envious of women that don't have hot flashes.
Those are probably
the night. Oh,
I think those are probably the women that also go, when I just stop eating when I'm not hungry anymore. I'm like, okay, stop now. Come on. Nobody stops eating because, I'm full. Please.
So, yeah, there are some very interesting searches here. We have the this one, which is around tweezing facial hair. Tweezing facial hair, does it make it grow back faster? That was one of the other searches.
I like to say I'm very happy that the iPhone has a flashlight, because without it, I'd never have known I was growing a beard. Because you don't realize that you're growing hair. I'm sure right now, after I'm done here, if I go and go into and put the flashlight there, there'll probably be like little stragglers under my chin that I never knew I had. But that's like constant. I constantly tweeze them, because at this point, they're going to come back. They're coming back. You can either tweeze them or you could shave them, then they really come back. So don't shave.
No. Never ever shave, because if you shave, you will definitely have the stubble.
Yep.
And then it becomes very clear that, with the stubble means that you are growing the beard. And, I grew up, I won't even tell you what my ethnicity is. You can guess it by listening to my name, but I won't tell you what my ethnicity was. I just assumed that my Zias and my Nanas just, at a certain age, they
Right.
just grew mustaches and beards.
Yeah.
They didn't have the bleaching creams back then. So when I
No.
grew up, I was like, okay,
Yeah.
I guess that's going to happen to me.
Yeah. Well, I think it was the first Showtime special. I talked about the fact that, because I talked about, I'm very anti-plastic surgery, and I mentioned Madonna. I said, and I said, Madonna's had work done, and, like shockingly. And then I said, she's my age and Italian. She should have a full beard by now. She really should. You know what I mean? So, well, whoever her what is it, facialist is, that's who you should go to, because she never has anything.
Yeah, she looks, she does not look her age, that's for sure. So yes, plastic surgeon, esthetician. Yeah. She's probably and she's probably doing
The Botox,
yep.
toxins, the needles. Oh.
We have so many questions here. I don't know that we'll get all of these. I think one of the last ones is foods that make you poop. When I do these podcast recordings with healthcare practitioners, and we do this is we're having fun here. By the way, in case you tuned in and you think that this is a healthcare practitioner, Carole Montgomery is a comedian, and do not, under any circumstances, take any of this advice as medical advice. We're hopefully just having fun with you.
Except for the pillow on your husband. That one you should take as medical advice, because I think
that you get CPR training. But we're seriously hoping that you have fun with this. So these are actual questions that were sent in that that women actually Google. And so again, if any of this crosses the line with you, we want to apologize, but we want to have a little fun too. So if there are serious questions, as in some of the questions on menopause, please consult your healthcare practitioner or listen to some of the other podcasts where we do have healthcare practitioners who are weighing in on these. But this one we talked about on one of our podcasts, and one of the podcasts with a medical practitioner, this constipation, and constipation can be a problem, but this one's how, what do you eat to make you poop?
Oh, the age-old question. I mean, it is fascinating that you get, I used to be regular every, when I was a kid. It's so funny. Whenever we'd be going, let's say on a road trip with my parents, and we'd be getting ready to go, this is still, I mean, we're talking now many years ago, I always remember my mother going, I can't leave until I have the urge. I can't leave until I have the urge. And I was like, what is she talking about? And then literally like 10 years ago, I went, oh, now I get it. I mean, she would, and I didn't know, it's like so mind blowing to me. I'm like, oh, that's what that is. So that's a, I wish I knew. I wish I knew if it was, I wish I knew like some people say prunes and all. My system is so messed up that I don't know. Like because for a long time I was on keto, and keto constipates you. So and then but then if I eat like if I eat red meat and a potato, that helps a lot. So I don't really know. I mean, that's a great question. If anyone knows the answer, please let me know.
Yeah, I would say they're probably, since this has been a question that it was asked on Dr. Google, I think we all want to know. And
Yeah.
we know regularity has been a problem of lots of generations, particularly as they age, but it doesn't necessarily have to affect women at midlife.
Right.
When you're not, as I said, we know what really controls the brain. Scientists are just figuring that out now with the gut brain basically interaction, that two-way street, which is the gut and the brain.
Right.
Now, when the gut, and when, more importantly, when you're constipated, it makes it really hard to think.
Oh yeah. Because all you're
So
thinking
it really
about is,
controls the world and the brain.
but it is because all you're doing when you're constipated is thinking, when am I going to poop? When am I going to poop? I actually, over the weekend, I had a stomach bug, and so I wasn't feeling good. And then Sunday, everything left my body. But as I know now that Monday, so today's Wednesday, but Monday I knew I wasn't going to poop, because my body after it's has stomach issues, you're gonna never have another comfortable poop for a couple of days. And so that's all you're thinking about is, when is it gonna happen, please? Because there really is, let's be honest, if we're gonna, there is nothing like a good old-fashioned poop. There really isn't. You're very happy when you're done. You're like, that, I feel very good now. I feel healthy.
I had a professor at University of Pennsylvania tell me that defecating was orgasmic. I'll just leave it at that.
Wow. Okay. Well, yeah. Okay. And now,
Defecating
for
was orgasmic.
the porn version of the podcast, ladies and gentlemen.
Exactly. Defecating is orgasmic. I never quite thought about it in that
No,
way.
no. Hugh Jackman, orgasmic. Defecating, not.
Hugh Jackman, orgasmic. So I think we've covered a lot of territory here. There are many other questions, getting into the nitty gritty, so to speak, at the very end of this podcast. But we had a lot of fun. We hope you did as well. And
Oh, I had a ball.
Carole Montgomery, I hope you will not be a stranger. I have so enjoyed doing this with you. And even better, the first time I met Carole was on another podcast, Fearlessly Facing 50. And she was entertaining then. It was more serious than this podcast is today. But I thought how fortunate I am to have met Carole. And she made me chuckle then, and I hope that she's made you chuckle during this podcast. We hope to have you back.
Anytime. I could talk to you for hours.
Oh, thank you. Same
I
here.
really can. I could
Same
just
here.
sit here and talk to you for hours, and then we could really get into the nitty gritty about what kind of pillow we should use.
Yes, yes, yes. And how to deal with the cheating husband, and what happened, or cheating partner, I should say. Let's face it, we all know the types, so we can have a lot of fun with that.
Yeah.
Lots of topics for women over a certain age. Carole is an expert at making us laugh, and she will be back. You heard it. She'll be back. Carole, thank you so much for being my guest on the Love Mia Vita podcast. And for all of you tuning in, I hope that you had a little fun. I hope that we made you laugh, that Carole made you laugh. And remember to love Mia Vita. Be well.